with a knife video for you. This is going to be a comparison video. This is the most requested comparison video ever. I've had so many requests to talk about the 8010 versus the Ultimate Hunter. I've had people message me and ask if they have one, should they buy the other one. I've had people ask, you know, is the 8010 worth the extra money? So I've had more than any other comparison. I've had more questions about this and more requests for this, and it brings up some really interesting points that we can go into as we work our way through here. So I think there'll be even a broader application than just this single discussion, because there are some upgrades here that, you know, I think raise some legitimate questions about what we spend money on and if it's valuable or not. So the first thing I want to say about this comparison before we even really get into it is that there have been the prices on these have been moving targets, let's put it that way. So these, I think right now, are 170 or 180 most places. These, when they came out, they were 140, and you know, I think, you know, Cold Steel thought that was a pretty fair price for them. They've since dropped to between $100 and $110. I've seen them for 104, 105, 107, a few prices in that range. Of course, if you go to White Mountain Knives, you can save 10% on whatever price these are going for. Now, if you find an exceptional sale, for example, a few weeks ago, these were on sale. The 8010s were on sale from Knife Center for $100, and that is phenomenal. Just you're getting so much knife for $100 that if you didn't take advantage of that deal, and you have any interest at all in an 8010, you really missed the boat. Nowadays, you're going to be back up to about 170, but you can save yourself 10%, which is not insignificant. That's $17 at $170. So anyway, you can use my discount code SHARPSTUFF over at White Mountain Knives to save yourself that money. Now, let's go ahead and get back into the specific comparison that we have here. These are very, very comparable because of the fact that they're similar materials, they're similar designs. Both of these are very Andrew Demko knives. The 8010 is essentially exactly like a custom 8010, or maybe not exactly, but very, very close to a custom 8010. The Ultimate Hunter is not super close to a custom Ultimate Hunter, but it's close enough, and you can certainly see the Demko stylings here. And of course, they're very similar to one another, even to the fact that they have the same three little jimping dimples there, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, now there are some significant differences that we'll work our way through here, beginning with size and weight, and that's going to be the primary one that may put off a lot of people or may make certain people lean toward the Ultimate Hunter. It is a smaller knife, and so the Ultimate Hunter is going to be 8 9/16 overall, 3.5 inches on the blade, 5 inches on the handle. It's got 4 inches of grip area and weighs in at 4.9 ounces. Okay, so that's a pretty reasonable size knife. Carries very well, has lots of real estate for your hands, feels really good in hand. And so that's significant. Now moving over to the 8010, we've got 8 13/16. So that's over 8 3/4 inches, 3 9/16 on the blade, 5 9/16 on the handle. So that's a little over 5.5 inches. The grip area, however, is less. And you can see this as you put them side by side. There's a little more of an aggressive, you know, two choils here that really make a defined spot for your hand. And so on the grip area between here and here, we're only going to get 3 3/4 inches. Now, still lots of space, and you do have that choil allowing you to get a little more room there. Now, here's where things really, really change. 6.8 ounces. So this is a full 2 ounces, okay? This guy is a full 2 ounces heavier than this, and that is going to be notable for many, many, many people. And perhaps you can stop watching this video right now and you just go, nope, there's no way. I'm not carrying a knife that weighs that much. So the Ultimate Hunter is the one for me. Otherwise, you know, the other way I can see this is, you know, if you're like me and you've got a collection of knives, when it comes down to measuring sort of practicality and ease of carry, you definitely have to give the points to the Ultimate Hunter. So in this category of size, weight, and carry, all right, and I always lump those together because they're so closely related. The Ultimate Hunter is the clear winner. It's much easier to carry around with you. It's much more practical as a true EDC blade, where the 80-10, you could possibly, you can do it, and I do carry this knife a lot, but you could probably move it more into the category of occasional carry because of its size and weight. All right, moving over to the blade. Now the blade, we've got to make a couple of special points about. First, very, very similar. We've got the same materials, S35 VN on both. We've got the same grind, okay? Now I know this is a hollow grind and this is a flat grind, but the new 80-10s will have a flat grind. So we've got the same grind, same steel, similar edge. Now, let me point out that in this particular comparison, my 80-10 is going to cut, it's going to slice and cut just a little better because of that hollow grind over the flat grind. Yes, you're sacrificing a little bit of toughness. I don't know if you jammed this into something and tried breaking it off this way. One, that's not an easy thing to do because it's supported on either side. I know it does happen, but it's pretty stinking rare. And if you're going to sacrifice strength, that'd be the place to do it when you're going to get extra cutting performance out of it. I won't go into too much more about flat grinds other than that. But what I'm going to say is this. This 80-10 blade is slightly dressier as well. We get the jimping carried in here. We get the swedge, okay? But in the standard flat ground 80-10, these are essentially the same, okay? So I'm going to call this one a tie because they're so close that it's almost meaningless to try and compare them in terms of performance. Perhaps aesthetics, you might like the look of one of these better. Maybe you like the wider blade better than the thinner blade, or maybe you like, you know, the lack of a swedge on top better than you like the swedge. Whatever the case may be, aesthetic considerations aside, these are essentially the same blade. Moving on to the lock. Now, both of them have the triad lock, and that may, you may think, well, Kevin, just call it a tie. But if you go to deploy these two knives, if you go to disengage the lock, immediately you notice a massive difference. The 80-10's lock is much, much smoother, much easier, and the action on the 80-10, watch as it just drops shut so easily. The Ultimate Hunter is not going to do that for you, right? I can shake it and get it to go down eventually, but it's not nearly as smooth as the 80-10. In addition to that, the thumb stud on the 80-10 is actually much more comfortable than the thumb stud on the Ultimate Hunter. Neither of them are, the Ultimate Hunter is not uncomfortable. We've talked about this in a previous comparison with the Recon 1. The thumb stud here can be a little hard to get a hold of and has some pretty sharp ridges on it. So I like the sharpness because it gives you good grip, but the extra size and design of this thumb stud is just very, very nice. The other thing is, if you're going to flick both of these, both of them I can flick open, but again, the 80-10 is much, much smoother. So without any hesitation whatsoever, I can say the action is much, much nicer on the 80-10. And if you've been put off by the triad lock before because it's difficult to disengage, try an 80-10. I think you'll be impressed because it's much nicer to deal with. Okay, moving on to another area where there are going to be some differences. Look at the handle. So we have contour G10 on both, actually very attractive G10, slightly more decorative in terms of hardware on the 80-10 over the 15. There is a significant difference here in terms of construction, and that is on the 80-10, we've got these aluminum liners with a sort of aluminum backspacer here as well that kind of doubles as a window breaker, skull crusher type of implement. Now moving over to the Ultimate Hunter, you don't have that. You do have a little indentation where your thumb can sit if you ever needed to use this in reverse grip. So that's something to consider. So now that we've kind of laid out the construction differences, both of them, well, I guess this is another consideration that's definitely worth mentioning. I've got notes about it, so let's do that now. If you look at the two clips, okay, both of them are cold steel clips. Both of them are going to take a little extra effort to get into your pocket easily. However, the 80-10 is single position. The Ultimate Hunter is dual position with the two clips that we're used to seeing from cold steel. So this guy's got a bit of a bend to it. If you want to flip it to the left side, you've got to use a completely different clip, which does ship with the knife. All right, both of these can benefit from just a little bit of tweaking. Both of them are pretty well done. I will say this, I like the small clip on the Ultimate Hunter quite a bit. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It carries pretty deeply in the pocket. This giant clip is a very Andrew Demko clip. This is what he always does. And you know, like it or hate it, that's the way it goes. I would not switch it because this is attempting to be faithful to the original custom knife. And so to me, that's more important. As long as the clip functions, okay, I don't really care where it carries in pocket. I don't really care about the size. I do care that it functions well. And both of these clips function quite well. And I would rather have a clip that looks exactly like the custom than to modify it into something different. Okay, if you were looking at this as purely a production knife and you didn't care about the fact that it was a custom, it was a production version of a custom knife, then you may have a different view on that than me, and I wouldn't blame you. And I think I've heard a little bit about some aftermarket clips. Now, let's move on to ergonomics. We've talked about the construction differences. They're better. They're very close. I have to say this. Both of these are two of the most comfortable knives on the market. They're really, really nice in hand. Both of them are. However, the AD10 with its extra size is definitely nicer. All right. So if I was going to do a lot of heavy cutting, I would be wanting the AD10, although either way, they're both really, really good. So ergonomics are very close. There are a couple little things on the AD10 that perhaps are upgrades or downgrades depending on who you are. To me, the Andrew Demko clip is an upgrade. To some, that might be a limitation. All right, where I can award a couple of extra points to the AD10 is in ergonomics, but it's so close, guys, that I don't know. I think we've got to call this one a tie as well. So it's a tough call here, guys. The Ultimate Hunter definitely carries better. I'm just going to rehash the points we've made. The Ultimate Hunter carries better, and it's a little smaller, although it's not really losing anything in terms of blade length. The blades are essentially the same. The Triad Lock, the action is much better on the AD10. And in terms of the handle, there are some big differences, but those differences don't amount to a whole lot, and because they're matters of opinion, some people might like the differences. So for example, if you're left-handed, you obviously prefer the ability to put this on the left side. That's going to be a big deciding factor. If you don't like this big metal clip, and some of you have specifically said that in the comments on previous videos, again, that's a huge factor. Maybe you want the aluminum sort of skull crusher here rather than nothing. Again, if you definitely want that, that's a big difference. Some might really like the extra strength provided by the aluminum. And again, same difference, same deal. That can be a positive or a negative depending on who you are and what your take is on this. So one of the things we need to touch on before we give our full conclusion, I guess the initial conclusion would be this. These are both great useful cutting tools, but without question, because of price and size, the Ultimate Hunter is more practical, right? It's going to be easier to carry around with you on an everyday basis, and it's going to cost you less to give you essentially the same performance. Now, what are you paying extra for on the AD10? Well, I think the design is considerable, right? We're getting a very, very faithful reproduction of an Andrew Demko custom here. And that, I think, has some value. At least to me it does. Andrew Demko is one of my favorite designers, so that to me has some value. If it doesn't have value to you, then you can cross this one off the list. The second thing is the action. This is a much more comfortable knife. In fact, there are really no cold steels before this that I would call fidget-friendly knives that are a little bit addictive to play with. This is very addictive to play with. It has such nice action. It just drops. It's very fun to flick. Now the AD10, the AD15, I'm sorry, also has that. So it's pretty fun to play with as well. But in comparison between these two, the action is much, much nicer on the AD10. And so that's definitely something you're paying extra for. You're also paying extra for the extra metal here. So we've got aluminum liners with G10 over just straight G10. and you may be the kind of person who wants that extra toughness, that extra durability. If you are, I definitely don't blame you, but you could potentially be paying more for that. Now, if it comes down to, which one I like better, I guess I better do this two times. First of all, because of the hollow grind, I like this one a lot better. Between the hollow grind and the action alone, it's way, way different. Now, if this had a flat grind, I wouldn't be as stoked about the blade. So it would just be the action that really is making a difference to me and a slightly better feel in hand. And so, yeah, in those cases, I would still take the 8010 over the Ultimate Hunter. However, if you sent me a message and said, hey, Kevin, I'm looking for one great EDC blade. I really like the design of the 8010. The Ultimate Hunter has a similar design. Which one should I buy? I'm going to recommend the Ultimate Hunter every time as a regular EDC blade. Now, guys, I want to stop for just a second here. My boys are here and really wanted to be part of this video, but because of some of the technical stuff I wanted to go through, I thought let's bring them in at the end. So the boys want to come in and weigh in on these two knives. So I'm going to bring them in and let them share their thoughts on these two knives with you. Thanks again for watching. I'll be back in 1 second and have my boys weigh in on these two knives. Okay, guys, so Joel and Ash are here, and we're going to get them to take a look at these two knives. Do you remember what they're called, Joel? Actually, you'll have to read them for us. What's this one?
The 8010.
So we've got the 8010.
And the Ultimate Hunter.
And the Ultimate Hunter. Okay, so...
We did the Ultimate Hunter yesterday.
Yeah. So which one do you guys like better?
Ultimate Hunter.
Ultimate Hunter? Why?
Because
This is Asher talking right now.
because it has
Because it has what?
black.
Oh, you like the black? But this one has black too.
I have to go with the 80 Cold Steel.
The 8010?
Yeah.
Why do you like the 8010? Asher, quit. You're going to cut somebody. Okay, there you go.
The 8010 because it's a bit more heavy duty than this knife, but it's not as good as the knife we reviewed yesterday.
Not as good as the Recon 1? Really?
Heavy.
It's heavy? Okay, so...
But I like this I'd like this if we're going out in the wilderness. We're just going out into our backyard, cutting a piece of wood.
Yeah.
If we're going out hunting, I recommend you take the Ultimate Hunter. It's lightweight and it gets the job done.
Okay.
And it's lightweight.
All right, good deal. Yeah, and you're right. This one is a little more practical than this one, no question. All right, do you guys have anything else to say?
Yeah.
How about say like and subscribe?
Like and subscribe and check out my channel, Joel Cleary. See you in the next video. Bye-bye, boys.
Like and subscribe.
Thanks, boys.
And see you, George.
Okay, thanks, guys. Don't forget to use the my discount code Sharp Stuff over at White Mountain Knives, and we will talk to you soon.
And don't
Bye.